Then to the interesting subject of in-laws. Okay, so I've got two scenarios. So I'll ask them as one question.
Okay.
So you have a son-in-law or a daughter-in-law. There is conflict. And here there's conflict, let's say the immediate family, either the parents or siblings. There's conflict. And this conflict, scenario one, is in the opinion of either the husband or wife, they didn't do anything wrong, right? In their opinion. And then option two is they acknowledge they made a mistake at some point, they apologized, but there's this conflict and persecution. How do you handle situations like that?
Okay, so the first one, you were saying in the first scenario, they don't, so
the couple,
yeah, they didn't do anything.
Eyes.
Yeah, in their eyes, they didn't do anything.
Right.
all right, but the in-laws are saying you guys have done ABC, they are attacking them.
Yeah, well, like maybe there's just unfair treatment.
Okay.
And
So like my parents unfairly treating her.
Yes.
And yet between the two of us, she didn't do anything wrong.
yes, and even to your parent, she hasn't done anything to receive the kind of
Right.
treatment.
Treatment.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so first and foremost, once again, I think what's key is to make sure that the two of us are okay. We are on one side. We have an understanding of what is going on. I think what makes situations like that worse is when now it becomes them against me or us against him. That brings division between the two of us. So the issue is now not about what the in-laws are doing, but you took sides. So now you've separated yourself from me, and now you're with this team. And I think that's very painful for a lot of people to feel that your spouse has, taken the other side and have neglected you in a sense. There's a sense of betrayal when that happens. So I think the most important thing is to make sure that the two of you get to a place where you understand what is going on, and you're on one team, and you're speaking with one voice. If it's to address the issue, if it's his parents or his siblings, then it's better off, depending on the relationship as well that I also have with his family, but it's better off coming from him, because it's easier for in-laws to forgive
Their child.
than it is for them to forgive me. Because remember, I'm the one that came into the family, or he's the one that came into the family. So it's easy to say, akatiti. But if it's their son, it's easy, or it's their daughter, it's easier to then talk it out and forgive each other. So in that situation, it would be easier if it came from.
Yeah, and also you can't, for the others, you can't really control what other people say. You can't control their reactions. You can't control their acceptance or rejection of you. The best you can do is just make sure that you guys are blameless. Where you have made a mistake, and the best you can do is to acknowledge that you've made a mistake and apologize. If they accept or they don't, you know what, you have done your best to remain blameless. So you can't really, control what they do. You want to maintain relations. As me, I always want to make sure that, my wife or my family is getting along with my wife. And I as much as I can position her in good light, no matter what. I would rather be the bad one in my family, to my family's eyes. I'd rather be the one who's...
But the struggle then comes where your mother is like, I know my boy. He's a very kind, loving, warm, it's this one. Now they don't want to see us, now they want to have their own, life away from us. He was never like that. Oh, my brother was, or my sister was caring, giving, and all these other things, and how do you deal with situations? Because these are...
They're real.
They're real. And you know what? At the risk of wanting to prescribe a solution that is too English, you know, but sometimes having a conversation with your family and getting them to understand and to realize that marriage is a big step. You know, do they want you to remain single and be committed to them, or do they want you to get married and begin to move on and, you know, build your own family, you know, doing what you see is best for you. You know, you can't really, if a change does happen, you know, and it does happen, it will happen for a lot of people, you know, when we are now building our own home, obviously the money that I used to be able to give my family, I can't anymore, you know. They have to understand it. I have to figure out a way to get them to see it, to understand it, to say, guys, listen, I'm starting my own family now. We have just bought a stand, or we're doing this, or the projects that we're doing as husband and wife, and I can't be as available as I used to be while I was still single. It's got nothing to do with her. Even if I had married someone else, even if I married the best girl in the church that you thought she was going to be, the situation was still going to remain the same. I was still going to change and now start focusing on my own home, you know. But some people, they will never understand. You know? No matter what you try, no matter how you try and explain it, no matter what you try and do, some people will just...
So in cases like that, what's your position? Because I think there's a mental health aspect tied to that. Because, like, I mean, even animals, we want to belong, the sense of belonging, you know, want to be accepted, and you know, and if that doesn't come or in whatever form, how do you as an individual go through or deal with that situation? Because I was going to ask you, there's another situation similar to that, but son or daughter empathizes with the parent, but they also love their wife. They have their own internal conflict where my mother sacrificed for me. You went to uni, they sold all the cattle for you to get to that position. But then you also now have your wife and her needs.
Yeah, so I remember when we were doing premarital coaching with this couple, the husband had been raised, their parents died earlier on or something like that, and then so the older brother had to put him through medicine, and the older brother quit school early so that he could do that. So now it meant that he is now a doctor, but the older brother had just had a minimal job because he left school early so he could take. So he felt that he was indebted to his brother. But there has to be a balance. You have to ask yourself, when my parent sacrificed this for me, when my brother sacrificed this for me, did they do it so I could be bound to them or so that I could have a better life? There's a difference there. And sometimes you also have to look at the message that the whoever took care of me is now sending. If it's a message, because in love there's no binding each other and chaining each other to say, because I did this for you, you have to do. That's a warped sense of, you know, looking at things. You did that because you loved me and you wanted me to have a better life, and a better life includes me also now building.
But on that point, there are actually people who raise kids like an investment, where I'm taking care of you today because I know when I'm 65, I am not, I'm going to stop working so that you take care of me. On that point, Kobe Bryant's, I hope I'm getting this right, Kobe Bryant's wife's mom is suing her own daughter for not taking care of her. You know, and in I think in different at different levels, it happens. There are people. I've heard cases of like, actually I have a friend where one of their relatives actually told them, no, we sacrificed everything for you, and this is how you're treating us.
So we're not saying that cut them off and never. But in your budget, I can't say in my budget, my 100%, I put 90% to you. That doesn't make sense. So we're not saying cut them off. Do what you can to still take care of them. In fact, where possible, when you are beginning, if you are going to put together something that you're going to say, you know what, we appreciate the work that you did, whatever you can afford to buy. You said different levels. If it's a level where you buy a cow, if it's a level where you buy a blanket, but put together something that you can say, you know what, I really appreciate the work that you did in raising me. And then day to day or month in, month out, if there's something in your budget that you can to take care of them, do that. We're not saying cut them off, but we're saying also be reasonable. To realize that you now have a family and find a way of respectfully communicating it to them that I also now need to take care of my family. I haven't cut you off, but I also want to raise my family, and I want to believe that you will be happy and be proud if now you've raised me and now I'm able to take care of my family and to raise them well as well. So it's about communication. Yes, sometimes you communicate and people remain adamant, but there are some things that you can't change people's mindsets. You can't change the way that people's perceptions. But you have to also look internally and say, are their demands reasonable? Did they raise me up so I could be chained to them? Or they raised me up, and if that was their intention, is that right for them to do that? No, it's not. So I can't spend the rest of my life bound to someone because they took care of me.
And say it's the same thing, but it's a sibling. Because I feel when it comes to parents, because of the respect that you have or you're supposed to have, you can present these issues you have to present these issues in a very mature and sober way. But say it's a sibling, it's your little sister. And you can see that, okay,
they're being unreasonable.
She's being increasingly testy and unreasonable. You know, how do you deal with someone where either you're the older person or you're at the same level, or your peers, even though they're older than you, your peers in that you could actually talk to them? How do you handle a situation like that?
I would say call them out. I mean, because I know my relationship with my sister. I would say call them out to say, hey, listen, on here, I can't do this because of this. I have to take care of my... And it's not an issue of choosing. You are both important to me. But what I'm called to do right now...
Are they equally important?
No, it's about my
priorities.
My priorities right now.
My priority is my immediate family. And my immediate family is my husband and my children. Right? Not to say that you're less important. No, you're very important. But that's just the nature of life. If you are married, you understand. If you're not, one day you will marry and you will also understand. You will see what I'm saying. You know, but it's not like she's saying, it's not a situation where we're saying, cut her off or cut him off, and you say, "Oh, now I'm married, so you know you'll fend for yourself, take care of yourself." No, it's getting them to understand that look, I have a family now, and I have demands that are on me, you know, to make sure that my family is well first. My family is well looked after first. I'm not going to neglect you. I will still play my part as your older brother or as your older sister or whatever. I'll still play my part, but it may not be to the same degree that I used to before I got married.
And then on the same kind of topic, but maybe a slightly different path. Friends. But to add a bit of a twist, you have friends, say either it's the husband or the wife, you know your husband or your partner has friends that have bad habits, that you know your guy is a good guy, he's got a good heart, he's got a good... But when Peter comes, or when Susan shows up, it's like I'm dealing with a different person. How do you deal with a situation where your partner is unaware of that behavior change, and two, a situation where they actually know that, okay, something happens to me when I'm with this person?
Okay, so unaware is just really pointing it out. Obviously, there are times you can't. There are some times where you have to pick your fights right, wisely, and there are times where you have to know what to say in a certain situation. You know, there are times where you know, like, I'm not being confrontational, but I'm just saying, have you noticed that? You know, when you're with me, you say we're going to do this, 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 and that. But the moment Peter arrives, you know, all of a sudden things change. Have you ever noticed that? You know, have you noticed that this, and you pick out, because I mean some of these things are very obvious. You can easily pick them out and say this, and that. If the person is level-headed, they'll be able to notice and say, okay, I think you've got a point. You know, I do change, or I do change, but let me explain.
Yeah.
And let me tell you why. You know, maybe this, and that, and you talk about it. In a situation where they do know that they change, that's on them. It really means.
Sorry, before you even move to the situation where they know, sometimes they don't know. But if I say, you change when Peter comes, and because of that, you are no longer, I don't want you to be friends with Peter anymore. He's going to get defensive, or she is going to get defensive, like, you don't instruct me. So it's in the way that you put it across as well, that's going to make your message be received or be rejected. Because if you talk down on me, somehow that push and thingy effect, I'm going to try and show you that you also don't then
if you push me, I'll push back.
Yeah.
That's just human nature. Push me, I'll push back.
And then on that, I just then also thought, are we supposed to be, or are you comfortable with close friends that have affairs? You don't have an affair, you're not having an affair, but your close friends are having affairs.
So, no, we are not comfortable. Look, there is always that, there are so many statements, Bible-based and some just not even in the Bible. You know, birds of the same feather flock together. Bad company corrupts good morals. So, I would not be comfortable with her having a friend who is, violating marriage principles, because for obvious reasons, that I may trust my wife 100%, I may trust her, but at the end of the day, you just, what do you have in common, that you are, when we talk about marriage, when you have a situation where you're advising each other on marriage, what is she advising you based on her marriage? So being comfortable, I may not be comfortable. I may not necessarily tell her to cut that friend off, to say just completely cut it off, but I will obviously voice my concerns.
Would you cut out your friend?
If they're having an affair.
Yeah.
Would you?
This is like your day one. You were together in primary, high school, uni.
I think as friends, what are the basic principles that we're building our friendship on? Are we building our friendship on real sterner stuff, sober habits? The moment you start to depart from what I respected about you as my friend, as the person that I want to build my character, when you start departing from that, look, you force me to also start departing from you. I may enjoy spending time with you, but the moment you start doing things that I don't support or things that I don't see value in, obviously our friendship is going to change. I may not cut you off, but I will definitely take a step back.
Yeah.
If I get to a point where I can no longer influence you, then what's left is you influencing me. So I will, painfully take a step back to protect myself.
Ivy.
I think when we say friends, there's degrees and levels of friends. So I have people that have friends that have influence on me. As in they are that close to me that they have the ability to sway me in terms of thoughts or behavior or whatever. So maybe sometimes it's to gauge where, in terms of the hierarchy of friendship, where is this person? Does this person have influence? Is this the person that I think to hang out every moment? I think I want to hang out. Is this the person that I call on? Because if that person has that kind of influence on me, chances are they can influence me to do that. But then there are people who are maybe now what's binding us together. In fact, if I can even use the word binding, what's keeping us in that communication is the fact that we were in primary school together, so we're still acquainted because of that. Maybe we still talk about, things that we went through in those days or whatever. But in the grand scheme of things, they probably don't have an impact or an influence in my life to be able to sway me into changing my values. So I think it also depends on that. If this is a person that I speak to because because if we were to cut off every person that has, yeah, there could be a challenge there. Yeah. So I think it depends on the degree of the closeness of this person, the proximity. Are they that close a person to me in my life? If not, there are people that I know, there are people that I talk to.
Key word being influence. You know, can they influence me? You know, is the level of our friendship at that level where they can influence me? If it's at that, then I may need to really consider, you know, our proximity. I may need to consider, you know, how we relate.
And then just to take us back a little, back to the in-laws thing. What's your opinion on, you know, traditionally there were boundaries where Atejara, you know, and his Murora and, you know, Son and Ambuya were not supposed to be like in the same space, you know. What's your opinion on that, given our modern day times, you know? Is it still relevant? And if not, why? If it's not, why as well?
I think the most important question is to ask, why were those things put there in the first place? You know, what was the motive behind having such boundaries, you know? And if those motives still remain relevant today, then we don't see why we should temper around with it. I mean, obviously, now relations have changed. You know, the way that I relate with her brother's wife, you know, we are close, but there is obviously those boundaries that are there. It may not be as intense as it was back in the day, where we can't even sit in the same room, where we can't even, you know, have eye contact. You know, it may not be that way, but I think what is important is, you know, to so, you know, what is important is to, what is the motive? What is the motive? If you can extract the motive from the laws, I think that will be okay. You know, it's that whole thing about, for instance, you know, it's not really an issue. You know, you get you know, a boil if you sit in, but it's protection. You don't sit in on the road because you know, donkeys and horses or cows will come and, you know, trample you. So it's the same thing. If we can extract the motive, then we'll keep the boundaries there. You know. So I think those laws were there for a reason, and they were important. And you know, our elders saw the danger in not having those boundaries there, and so they put those laws there. And so it's important for us to figure out what was the motive, what was the reason why they put those there in the first place, so that we can uphold them and, you know, modify them however we need to, but still, you know, maintaining the protective mechanism that was there, you know.
Yeah, and I think now when you speak of modernity, I think we may have some kind of challenge now in terms of relations, where, you know, back in the day, maybe some demands were met by the extended family that used to be around. But now you find chances are, in terms of relations or, you know, taking care of each other, chances are we are constantly in each other's space. It's just the parents and us, and probably not the larger extent of the family. So I think to some extent we may have to make adjustments where adjustments are needed, but also continuing to uphold the values. What was the value in that, without maybe necessarily crossing it? Because I'm thinking of, you know, instances where if my father-in-law needed to be taken to the doctor, as in driven to the doctor, and there's no extended family to do that, and I'm the one who's available, am I going to say I can't be in the same car with him? So I think there may be adjustments that we may need to do because of the way that we now live. But even in making those adjustments, what can we do to still consider the values that were there?
I think to a great extent, in my opinion, I feel like they protect. You know, I guess there's some extremes, you know, where it's like, oh, we're not supposed to be even. But I feel like to some extent they protect, you know, and lessens the chances of people getting offended at each other, you know. Like yesterday I heard of a story of a South African radio station. Someone called in. It was like, you know, those anonymous things. And this was a lady saying that her best friend, they took in her father-in-law. And the father-in-law had been having sexual relations with her for like a very long time, for years, you know. So in my mind, it then took me back to
that,
to this, to say, okay, I guess there's some validity.
Yeah, there is.
So yeah, we don't advocate for us to do away with.
I think sometimes we miss it when we just say this thing used to be done long back, so let's remove it. It's not the time that determines whether something needs to come off. It doesn't make sense to just say, because so take the time. Wisdom is trying to find out why was it done in the first place. I think I've heard a statement where that says the person that knows why the person who knows how is at the mercy of the person that knows why. As in, if you just know how something was done, there's proximity, but you have no clue why. You know, the person that knows why has a better advantage than the person who just knows how. So let's not just throw away things and just say, now it's modern. You know, we're doing this. Things were put in place to protect us. So let's look at things, see why it was there, and see what, if there's need for modification. Yes, we modify, but let's not throw away the things that were of value from,
Okay. And then off to a lighter topic. Say duties in the house. Okay, like
we don't have prescribed duties.
Okay. Okay, so because I was going to ask to say, okay, is it that, you know, men are supposed to be, you know, doing the garden?
We don't have prescribed
cooking
duties,
and
but you know, we still somewhat maintain a traditional light traditional approach. Where,
like Coke Light, like traditional light.
Like a Coke Zero kind of an approach. Where, I mean, there's some things that, and that's for us. We wouldn't know and want to talk about what happens in other people's homes. But, you know, I don't do laundry, bruh.
But you say that. But there was a time, I remember. So I think these I don't do. Sometimes you can say that in the environment that makes sense for you to say that. So he's saying he doesn't do laundry. I think he's forgotten. There was a time when we didn't have a maid for quite a bit. And I would get up early around 3 a.m. to do laundry so that I can start the day.
Yes, I hear you. That's the, so when I say I don't do laundry, I'm saying my name is not put on the duty roster. Okay. To say that Tuesdays you do laundry or it's your turn to do laundry. No. When I say I don't, that's what I mean when I say I don't do. But, you know, because of that's what we say, where you say you don't consider each other, understand where each other are at. Where I see that she's in trouble and she's drowning here with things that need to be done. And obviously I'm not just going to sit and put my legs up, you know, and just watch her. I will help, you know. I will help. But not to say it's an expectation that Simba, it's Tuesday, it's your turn to do laundry. That's what I mean.
Okay. Is it wrong to do that, to have duties and say, okay, Monday to Tuesday, or Monday so-and-so cooks, the other washes dishes, and also considering they're both professionals. Maybe someone is a marketing manager there, someone is an MD there, and how MD ne manager who no pin there.
Let me say, you know, there are some things that are of no eternal consequence. So if in your home, if it works for the both of you,
100%.
then do you. If it works for the both of you, as in no one is feeling like they were forced into doing this. Like if you're not on the duty roster, no sex this week. If no one feels like that, or if you don't do it, then I'm going to be sulking for 6 months. If you've agreed on that, you know what? I've got brothers, I've got cousins who
iron clothes.
They iron clothes because they prefer
that way.
They like the way they iron their clothes. They wouldn't actually want their wives to iron. And they're okay with that. And you know, when you then walk out of those doors and you meet them, that shirt is not going to say I was ironed by the husband. So it works. Are they happy in that setup? Does it take away from him being the husband? Does it take away from me being the wife? If it doesn't, then I think we can pay too much attention and be fixated on things that really don't make a difference at the end of the day. Are you happy as a couple doing that? Yes, we're happy.
Full stop.
Full stop. You're good.
Okay.
In my home, if he says I'm not on the roster, then that's it.
We're okay, like
I'm sure any guy would prefer
not being on the roster.
or you'd be surprised.
No, like for these two that I'm speaking about, honestly, they prefer doing the cooking. They prefer, because they have a certain way of doing things. It works for them. So and
they're raising their children in that environment where it's like, you know what, dude, it's okay for you to actually iron clothes. It's okay for you to do laundry.
Yeah, and I think sometimes the reason why you say I will not is not necessarily because you will not, but it's because of the fact that you were never exposed to that. So it feels weird. There are people who say, before we got married, you'd say, I've never eaten budzi, goat meat. I've never eaten. And I'm sure in his head, it was, I don't eat that. But exposure to someone who does made him think, oh, okay, so we can actually, this is actually nice, to a point where he's now actually ordering it. So it depends on what you were exposed to. Some I don't is simply because you were never exposed to that. So when you allow yourself to be exposed to that, you might change your mind. Yeah.
And then final question. I've got too many questions. But final question. You love your dear partner. And you can see that they always try to do well. But some things they just can't. Could be even sex. You know, how do you manage that? Let me just hear your responses first.
I'll answer on the food one. You answer on the sex one. So, I think as couples, and I've said this before, you know, I think we have a danger of taking life too seriously. Like, too serious. If he says, you know, I didn't like this dish or this meal, I take it seriously, like it's an attack on me being a wife, or I'm failing on my duty as a wife or something. But it's okay not to excel in some of these things. It may not be my area. I find ways of making some of these uncomfortable situations lighter. We can laugh about how, you know, okay, I know you tried, but the way that you did this tap, or maybe you tried to fix this tap. Asma try, and then we can laugh. So now it's okay. He feels like I'm not attacking him I'm not attacking his manhood. And we can laugh on things like that, even to say, so, but if we are always too serious about things, it may make it very difficult to deliver the not so nice things. But if you can find ways of making life lighter, it's okay to even laugh. We even teach our kids, it's okay to even laugh at yourself. That I tried this. Now, if you can't laugh at yourself, chances are when someone else tries, it's going to be difficult. So allow yourself even to laugh at yourself, like, I tried, but it didn't work out.
Look, I think that it's generally the same principle applies for everything. When they're talking about sex, when they're talking about work at detoxifying your environment, your marriage environment. If a room is full of LP gas, when you just light up a match, there's going to be an explosion.
Yeah.
So if we work at opening up the windows to make sure that our environment is gas-free, that we can light up matches and nothing happen, you know, we are okay. I can communicate about, you know, whether it's a sex position, whether it's a sex style, whether it's a sex duration, whatever. I can freely communicate without her asking, okay, so where did you hear that from? Where did you try that? Who did you try that with? You know, without doing that, opening up the windows to make sure there's enough fresh air in the house. I think it's easy to communicate some of these things and just say, listen, sweetheart, last night wasn't happening. Sorry, but I'm out last night. Also, you know what, funny enough, you should mention it, because then also my mind was not even in it. I was thinking about, you know, what we need to do this year, we need to do. I was thinking about, you know, the report that needs to be done. And so, okay, is that the reason why we laugh about it? So, normalize just being normal, you know, without personal just normalize being yourselves and being free to be able to say and suggest. Because I tell you, if at the end of the day, what you want is to please each other. So if she's going to research and read books and to get advice from other people on how to please me, it's going to be for my advantage. So why would I want to bind her and tie her and tie her hands behind her back, you know, when the whole intention behind it is wanting me to be pleased? So heck, go and get as much advice as you want. Read as many books as you want, because I know at the end of the day it's going to work out for me. You know, it's for my sake. I'm going to be the one that's going to enjoy this thing. You know, so I think if we just create just such kind of an environment in our homes, in our marriages, where, you know, nothing is a sacred cow, nothing is a taboo. You know, we talk about everything. You know, and the first response is not to ask, why are you bringing that up, or where did you hear that from, or where did you know? It's, okay, you know what, we want to make the marriage work. We want to make the marriage better. And so we'll do whatever we need to do, as long as it's not violating, you know, principles. We're not violating my conscience. You're not violating your conscience in looking for this information or whatever. It's okay, you know.
And I think sometimes we live our lives, you know, wanting to portray an image of being perfect. There's no person who's perfect. So even if I'm the best cook, you know, I love MasterChef. So I watch that like religiously. But there are times where you'll find the person that was amazing the week before, the day before, today cooks the worst dish. It happens. That's life. So I should be able to say, today out of 10, I think 13.5. And then we talk about chi. Was it the position? Was it the chi? What was it? Okay, I think let's fix this. And then we fix it. But if we think we're going to be superheroes day in, day out, then we have a problem. We have a challenge.
You know, we know a couple. And like, this is just one example. But, you know, people can do it in everything else. So many other things. Just make it creative and make it fun. We know a couple who give each other awards.
Wow.
They give each other, some give each other awards. They give each other medals. You know, that was a gold medal. You know, I was a silver. I was bronze, and that was platinum. You know, they give each other awards. And ask why. You know, why was this a platinum today? Because I want to repeat tomorrow. You know, why was it a gold today? Why was it a bronze today? Or why was it today? I was podium. There's no podium finish here. You know, some, like there's one couple, they put money, they have a jar. Wow. They put money after every sexual encounter, depending on how hectic it was. They just say,
we put the stand today from the process.
And at the end of the week, they take out that money and they go on dates.
They use that money to go out on dates. So that's how they save up anyway to go on dates. So the money in the jar is for dates. So you have to make sure that you are delivering so that we can have money for the dates.
Wow.
So it's about being creative.
It's just people doing what they need to do to make their marriage work. You know, so it's limitless. You know, you can do whatever.
Okay, Ivy, Simba, thank you so much for gracing us with your wisdom. I feel like I just had a free consultation.
But thank you so much for inviting us. It's our pleasure. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
And on that note, we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Oh, thank you.
It's fun.